Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. This episode is absolutely jam-packed with progress as I continue work on building my dream acreage. What I'm trying to create is a masterpiece and a very private oasis, so let's check in on the progress. Okay guys, well when we left off in the last episode, I was dealing with an insane spring melt that all happened over the course of 2 days. We had gotten a ton of snow over the winter, and then it all decided to melt in 2 days as the temperatures soared, which caused all the water to back up, as the drainage in the subdivision isn't great, and the culverts aren't big enough to handle this amount of water. Luckily though, this was the height of the water here, and the next day it had started to recede, but it still gave me valuable information for what I need to do to ensure the water can leave my yard as efficiently as possible, and I'll know where I need to build up to ensure it never reaches my house. Now early in the spring, my one neighbor decided to build a second shop right beside his other one, but needed to cut down a couple of big poplar trees to make room for it. And of course, me being the smart guy that I am, I asked if he could send the resulting mulch over to my yard because I have plans to mulch my entire tree line. Yeah, I know that seems insanely ambitious, but the benefits it provides are well worth it. Mulch will help control weeds, regulate soil temperature, and conserve moisture. But as I got to work dumping it over the fence here to go around some of the extra spruce trees I have planted over by the shop, well, it just goes to show you that I'm gonna need a lot of mulch. Now as I work on spreading it around here, what my goal is to have about a 12-inch thick layer of mulch around all of my trees. I know that sounds like a lot, but if it isn't that thick, then weeds will still be able to grow through. This way the mulch will suppress the weeds, and it should save me an enormous amount of time trying to control them going forward. The only problem is going to be finding mulch in the amount that I need. I've already let the tree trimming company know that if they ever have mulch to get rid of, that I'll gladly take it, but otherwise it's something I'll have to pay for, and to buy it from a landscaping supply place will cost a small fortune. I do have another option though that should be a little more practical, and if all goes to plan, you'll see that in a future video. Alright, well a couple of weeks later and I turned my attention to the backyard where I wanted to work on the grading a little bit after seeing the crazy spring melt we had, and while I can't exactly bring in a whole bunch of dirt here since I know the water needs to run through my yard and out to the front ditch, I did want to fine tune things a little bit, so the low point was exactly where I wanted it. And speaking of low points, if you recall from the last video, this area beside the shop held water because I hadn't gotten to finishing it yet and fixing the grade, but that ends now. This is the area that I call the peninsula, and the reason that I curved the lane was to create this area. My plan here is to have a ton of different trees and shrubs and a raised area, or basically a hill, to create more visual interest, which is marked out using the yellow flags. Now before I can start spreading any of the topsoil that I've got coming, I need to work on the grading a bit and get it to where water would naturally flow from the house side and out towards the ditch. That way it'll be easier to just follow the grade when I start to put the topsoil on. Well, much to my surprise, the tree trimmers that had brought me my neighbor's mulch trees a few weeks ago took me up on my offer to dump mulch in my yard if they ever needed to. I'm pretty sure that it costs them money to go and dump it at the city landfill, which is insane, I know. So I'm basically offering them a free place to dump it, though of course I gave the guys a little cash for their troubles and to hopefully keep them coming back. Once I was happy with the grade, it was time to start moving topsoil in and basically filling the whole peninsula because there's going to be quite a few trees and shrubs in here. Now as I keep working on moving topsoil here, you might notice that I'm a lot more fluid and comfortable with operating the Bobcat than I have been in previous videos. And that's just quite simply because I've spent so much time in here now. It's been well over 100 hours at this point, and with that amount of time and a lot of it spent moving material around, you're just naturally going to get the hang of the machine. So I'm glad that I have, because it certainly helps to make these jobs go a lot quicker. Here's a quick look at where things are at right now. I'm still working on spreading the topsoil around, and then I'll start to level it all out, though you'll probably notice that I'm leaving a bit of a buffer zone right beside the shop, and that's because the holding tank is there, and I just don't want to be planting any trees that close to it or the shop. What I'm doing now is basically just packing the dirt so that I can run my eye down the peninsula and make sure that I've got proper grading going on, which is especially important because once I start building the hill, I'm going to have to make sure that I've got slope from the house side of it, around the hill and along the lane. I want to make sure that any snow or heavy rainfall will drain away properly so I don't have a repeat of this past spring. Now as I continue work on building the hill here, you'll see I've still got a couple of yellow flags in the ground, but most of them had to come out when I built it up with clay first. So even though there's just a couple left, I've got a pretty good idea of where the boundaries are, even though it really doesn't actually matter all that much if I'm out by a foot or two. Okay, well I finally finished spreading topsoil and building the hill in the peninsula, and while I know it doesn't look like much of a hill, it is about 2 to 2.5 feet higher than everything else. Now I wasn't trying to go crazy here, but I just wanted to get some of the trees a little bit higher to give things a little more visual interest, and now that it's ready, I can swap over to the auger attachment and then start marking out all the locations of the trees with some spray paint, and then start digging. Now as for the types of trees that I'm going to be planting in here, well, there's a nice variety, including some Amur maples, Japanese ivory silk lilacs, Thunderchild flower and crab apples, which don't produce fruit, a couple of Ohio buckeyes, and of course some more spruce and pine trees. As for the spruce though, I could have pulled from my nursery, but decided to buy some that were a little bit bigger, as I found a good deal on these ones from Canadian Tire, and I couldn't resist them, though let me tell you, they were incredibly heavy. I'm pretty sure each one weighed at least 100 pounds, so being able to just drive them over with Bobby was really nice. Alright, well, while I work on getting these spruce trees in the ground, the first step is to make the hole a fair bit bigger, because these are pretty big trees and the root ball is almost 18 inches. My 18-inch auger bit is pretty much big enough for all the other trees and shrubs that I'm going to plant, so it would never really make sense for me to have an even bigger bit for it. Once I've got the hole made bigger though, I'll get the tree out of its container and work on roughing up the root ball a little bit. Then once it's ready, I'll set it in the hole, check the height, make any adjustments, get some bone meal and water in the hole, and then finish planting it. Okay, with all the spruce trees in the ground now, it's time to put the auger back to work and get a whole bunch more holes dug. And while I do, I just have to say that this auger has been so incredibly useful for me, as I've used it a ton over the past couple years now, and I just couldn't imagine if I had to dig everything by hand. I can guarantee you that I wouldn't have planted near as many trees. Now, if any of you out there have ever dug a hole before, you can probably feel my pain here when my shovel abruptly hit a giant rock. Thankfully though, the dirt out here really hasn't had too many rocks in it, though there has been the odd time when the augers found one. And of course, when I was trenching for the main irrigation line running around the perimeter of the yard, well, I found quite a few then too. Okay, well now that all the planting is done, I figured we'd go on a little tour of the yard, especially the tree lines, and check in on how everything is looking as summer is right around the corner. Starting over beside the shop where I mulched earlier, and you can see that some of the spruce and pine trees had a bit of winter burn, but the lilacs are looking great. I'm very hopeful that the mulch here is going to have a huge impact on the health of all these trees though, as retaining moisture is going to be vitally important. Over behind the shop, I planted a whole bunch of tomato plants and dropped a 4x4 post in the ground and secured the end of the irrigation line to it. Continuing down the tree line, and all of the larger trees over here are looking great, but my nursery is running wild with weeds, so I definitely need to get that taken care of. Around the back now, and all of my Saskatoon berry bushes are also looking really good, as are the couple of poplar and ash trees that I transplanted a couple of years back. Carrying on over to the eco buffer, and while the spruce took a hit this winter, they're already trying their hardest to bounce back, which is great to see. Honestly, most things over here are looking pretty good, and I have very high hopes for the eco buffer's growth this summer. Next up is my garden, where I've got all kinds of goodies planted, like tomatoes, potatoes, peas, beets, carrots, pumpkins, squash, zucchini, and onions. Here's another look at the eco buffer and the rest of the tree lines. Hard to believe that everything here, with the exception of the spruce trees, were planted as tiny little sticks that came in the mail. I sometimes catch myself looking out the window trying to see if they've grown more since the last time I looked. It's hard not to be excited to see it all grow and have my vision come into reality, even though I know I'm going to be waiting many, many years for that to happen. Alright, well, early in June, I finally got my hands on a bunch of large boulders that I'm going to use as feature rocks in the peninsula, though it did take some time to figure out exactly which one I wanted where, and then how I wanted them all oriented. I gotta say though, getting to lift giant rocks like this with Bobby is every bit as fun as it looks. Of course, because I have all the trees and shrubs planted in the peninsula now, it made getting these rocks into place a little more difficult, but I expertly got them all positioned exactly the way I wanted without any plant casualties.
Okay guys, well that is going to wrap things up for this episode, and I just want to say first and foremost, thank you for watching and supporting the channel. That means everything to me. But also that I know you guys want more videos, and honestly, so do I. I enjoy making these as much as you guys are enjoying watching them. It's been difficult trying to do everything that I have to do, and then on top of that, be filming everything that I'm doing out in the yard. So hopefully as winter approaches here, I'll be able to find some more time and get more videos out to you guys, because there is an absolute ton of great footage and awesome content coming your way. Anyways, that's all I've got for this one, so I'll catch you guys in the next video.